All right, looks like we are live. Welcome everybody to Standing for Truth. My name is Donnie B, and I am your moderator and host for tonight's epic 2 versus 1 debate between Call Me Emo and Snake Was Right versus Dr. Dino. I also have with me Praise I Am from the Praise I Am YouTube channel, acting as a co-mod, helping me out tonight, gathering questions from our always very lively chat. So, gentlemen, I want to thank everybody for being here. The exact question for tonight that we will be debating is there reasonable evidence for macroevolution? So before we get into it, though, let's just have a real brief introduction from the debaters. Everybody's been here before. As a matter of fact, both Call Me Emo and Snake Was Right have both taken the challenge this year. All within the last several months. So why don't we start with the evolution side, real quick introduction into who you are and how you've been. Snake, let's start with you. What's going on tonight?
All right, so I run a channel called Snake Was Right. That's about skepticism and science and, mostly religious topics. But I like to go after kind of zeitgeisty type topics. So religion, a little bit of politics, and a little bit of media criticism, actually, and that it all kind of ties together. I kind of have this secular / atheist spirituality take that I think really I think fiction is really important. So that's why I do media analysis, and it all kind of ties together because I think there's spiritual aspects to skepticism itself. But I just enjoy having these conversations about how do we know things. I run a debate channel with my friend. She's a debate coach, so we're trying to get that up and running. Praise is going to be on this week versus Luca, and that's what's going on with me.
Awesome. Appreciate that introduction. I do have your channel. Your channel is linked in the description box, or I'll make sure to get those in there, as looks like Praise will be there debating Luca Medugno shortly. So, okay, over to Call Me Emo. How are you doing tonight? Mikie, a little bit about yourself and your channel. Go ahead.
All right. So my name is Mikie Sambo, but I go by Call Me Emo on YouTube. I have a channel, but I don't do much on it. I have a few mirrored videos. I would, have discussions and debates, and I would just post it on the channel. I mainly deal with more evolution versus creationism debates. That's why I'm taking part in this one today. And that's pretty much it. You'd find me more active in the comment sections of videos, usually on Standing for Truth channel, or you can find me on Twitter at same Call Me Emo.
All right, awesome. Thank you to Emo and Snake. Introductions from the evolution side. Call Me Emo. I do have your debate linked with Dr. Hovind in the description box for people to check out. That debate was definitely a lot of fun. So, Kent, over to you. Thank you for being here. This is a 2-on-1, so I don't know if this is going to count as 2 debates or 1 debate. So, how you doing tonight? A little bit about yourself, Kent.
Well, thank you for having me again. Yes, my name is Kent Hovind. I've been a Baptist preacher 48 years. I taught high school science and math 15 years. I believe the Bible is absolutely true and scientifically accurate. God made everything in 6 days, like he said he did. Stars, dinosaurs, everything. And the earth is about 6,000 years old. And we defend that position against all comers. So you're glad you found 2 tonight. We can take on 50 at a time if you'd like. I'll defend the Bible against all of them. We have Dinosaur Adventureland in Lenox, Alabama. If you want to come see that place, it's amazing. Where God gets the glory for his creation instead of the stupid evolution religion. We've got hundreds of science lessons that teach real science that have a spiritual application, all kinds of lakes and ponds to fish in, all kinds of buildings. You can come to our science center, 12,000 square feet, our museum, theme park, all kinds of fun stuff to do, and teaching about the amazing creation God has made. I believe God ought to get the glory for his creation. We produce a lot of DVDs and videos on science in the Bible. My seminar series is, I'm not sure how many have gone out there. It's well into the millions. Some people have estimated 15 million. So a seminar series, 18 hours for $50, you can get the whole thing on defending the Bible as being correct. And then our Woe series on what's about to happen according to the Bible about the future. And we've got all kinds of videos on our website, drdino.com, as well as I've written 67 books, and I like to be kept busy teaching about God's creation. And I would like to get both of these guys tonight converted, get them to be God-fearing Christians. That's the goal, all right?
Awesome. Kent, thank you so much for that introduction from you. And again, to the debaters, thanks so much for being willing to engage in this important topic. Praise as my award-winning co-moderator tonight. Any words of introduction from you?
No, I'm just happy to be back on the channel that I was a part of in the very beginning of this channel, and it's an awesome honor to be back, man. And I'll do my best to fetch questions and whatever else you need me to do.
Amen. Appreciate it. Glad to have you back. Real quick, so we've got two debates, one tonight, obviously another one tomorrow, the round two between Kent and Daria Bloodworth. Round one was how are pine trees and whales related. Round two will be how are humans and chimpanzees related. So make sure you are back here tomorrow for that debate at 7 Central. So for the audience sake, format for tonight, we're going to do our best to keep it equally timed, focusing on one topic at a time. We're going to have 12-minute opening statements. We're going to break it up for the evolution side, 6 minutes from Snake, 6 minutes from Emo, or I mean, in basically however they want to break it up. If Snake went a little bit more and Emo took 5 minutes instead of 6, that's fine too. Then we'll give Kent equal time, a quick rebuttal, and then some open discussion and audience Q&A. So please, in the audience, make sure you're tagging me at Standing for Truth. That way I won't miss your question. So let's get right into the fun now that the introductions are out of the way. To the evolution side, we're going to give you 12 minutes. And so whenever you guys are ready, Snake, I see you have unmuted, so I'm guessing you are starting. And sure. Whenever you're ready, go ahead.
Okay. Gonna get up my magic share screen. And we're gonna go right over to the correct tab. Okay. So today I want to talk about the terrible double standard that skeptics of evolution use to uphold their idea of biblical kinds, yet deny evolution. They accept comparative genomics and comparative anatomy up to a point, and then just kind of arbitrarily drop that standard, just again at arbitrary points. So let's explore. The following are some slides by Call Me Emo. He's pretty good at this graphic design thing. So creationists point to morphological gaps between kinds as evidence of their separateness. And I have the gap. Mikie had the gap labeled there. So some, like Kent here, like to compare mosquitoes and pine trees, but really you should be comparing, you should be at least starting with the most similar organisms, like mosquitoes with other insects and trees with other trees. As we have here, the Bengal cat and the genet cat. Problem is there's always new fossils or species discovered that often bridge these gaps, especially as predicted by evolution with Archaeopteryx and all the dinosaurs there. So these transitional forms bridge gaps. But, you could say that these are separate kinds altogether, the transitional form, and not part of these two kinds on the sides. But since they accept a wide range of diversity with these first kinds that we have here, because they're all related to a bunch of different species with a range of diversity, that means that the transitional form must be of a population set that has a similar range of variability. So this creates a problem. This now means that the variation possible within that kind is now larger than the gap between our original kinds. So now the amount of variation bleeds into each other on all sides, and there's no way to tell that there's any separateness. They could all be the same thing. You could try and solve it by saying that the transitional form is just one or the other of the two original kinds that we started with being separate. This also creates a problem because this literally just shrinks the gap between the original two to non-existent. Now they're just two different kinds that have no gap at all. And so whatever method we use, we end up with united diversity. A perfect example of this is the early horse and the tapir. Mesohippus is accepted by creationists and creationist organizations without exception, to my knowledge, as an early horse in the same kind as modern horses. And this is based solely on anatomical similarity and nothing else. And yet, the Mesohippus is closer anatomically to tapir than it is to modern horses. So we have to arbitrarily just stop using comparative anatomy. Mesohippus and tapirs have identical feet, for example. The rest of the skeleton is pretty close, but feet's what we're going to focus on. Yet modern horses walk on a single toe with no other toes, yet they're related to four-toed ancestors that are smaller, by the way. So, yes, creationists accept that microevolution can lead to complex anatomical changes to larger animals. And that's a major structural change. Anatomical variation is larger within this horse kind than it is between the part of the horse kind and the tapir kind. So this is an inconsistent standard because there's no way to be able to apply this standard without just, like, I wouldn't be able to predict where they cut this off. So they say there's no possible relationship between these animals based on nothing. But definite scientific relationship between these animals, and thus it's an inconsistent application of comparative anatomy. Another emo slide, perfect meme. Comparative anatomy is viewed as valid to draw relations within kinds, but arbitrarily dropped within animals they don't want to be related. So all these ceratopsian skulls, they're all related. They're all the same species or kind because they look the same. And yet when we do this with hominid fossils, somehow that method doesn't work anymore. Creation Ministries International, for example, claims to be able to identify snake fossils from just jaw bones, some of them with no teeth, that they say this must be a snake. Sometimes they use just vertebrae fossils that look like modern snake vertebrae, but how are they able to tell unless comparative anatomy is a valid methodological process? It's just a fragment of a fossil that kind of looks like something we have that's modern today. Baraminology, the creationist term for classifying kinds, demonstrates this self-defeating problem. Baraminologists try to find hard criteria for morphological gaps. It's declared when there is a larger gap between the clusters of similar morphologies. But as more fossils are discovered, these gaps close, and thus the Aves kind and the Dromaeosaur kind have been linked via the creationist methodology. So that was dropped. And comparative genomics is basically the same story. The process here is to take genetic elements that are so random that if they're the same, this indicates close ancestry. This is how paternity tests work. Creationist attempts to create genetic barriers always fail, like with DNA barcoding. They'll pick arbitrary thresholds that split up humans and other apes, but what happens is that it splits up cats and canines as well, which overloads the arc. If we increase the threshold to include cats and canines all as the same kinds, which are declared by creationists, then we get humans and chimps in the same kind. Whoops. The favorite example for macroevolution these days is ERVs, which are DNA elements that viruses inserted into ancient genomes, which are inherited, also known as ERVs. We know that they're not original created parts of the genome because they have viral-specific structure and can insert just about anywhere. The fact that just a small amount of ERVs have function is actually a point against creationism because of the way that they gain function, and we'll talk about that. It's co-opting can be observed in real time. The fact that these viral elements are what's giving function and not an original created DNA element is a point against creationism. But also the inheritance patterns. Well, these make a great marker for ancestry because it's the same principle on how paternity tests work. The position is random, so is the degradation of the viral elements, and it just so happens that these similarities correlate precisely with phylogenetic trees produced based on comparative anatomy too. So we have dual nested hierarchies, and if it was random, it would never line up like this. And it's what we'd expect if evolution was true, but makes no sense for created kinds. There are, just for one class of ERVs or ERVs, there's 205 shared with chimps, out of 213 in humans. And so this number is the chances that that would happen randomly. So it's mathematically impossible for us to not be descended from apes. And that's not even considering all the other classes of ERVs, and that's not even considering all the other classes of things like ALUs, for example, or just, here, cytochrome C. So these create virtually identical results from comparative anatomy. So using different techniques, getting the same result is really good scientific evidence. And the theory of evolution predicted both of these patterns. It predicted fossils that lie in the gaps. It predicted where the fossils would be found. This is an incredibly useful tool, if completely false. That makes no sense how useful it is. Genetic clocks also line up with geological and radiometric clocks. If these are wrong and the Earth is young, the amount of radiation alone would melt the Earth. So that's certainly not friendly to anyone's theory of how life came about. Since we know these dating methods are accurate, we also know the ages of the fossils found on the Earth. So the question is, why is there a difference between the populations living on Earth at different times? And the theory of evolution predicts the pattern. The God hypothesis is just useless because it can fit all data and can never be ruled out by the nature that God can do anything. So is it possible to know things without witnessing them directly? Sure, with the scientific method. If novel testable predictions of the hypothesis are successful, this is great scientific evidence of the hypothesis. Evolution does this over and over and over and over, and creation never. So it's clear why scientists choose evolution, and an all-knowing God should know this evidence is so good. If he does nothing about it, he must approve of our conclusions. And that's all I got.
Okay, so that's just over 10 minutes. Emo, did you want to use the last 2 minutes of the agreed upon time for opening statements, or hand it right to Kent? Emo, it's up to you. I've got 2 minutes on the clock left until 12 minutes.
All right, I'll just use up the 2 minutes. So at least we should first understand what is macroevolution. And macroevolution is usually defined as the production of new species, or speciation events, right? Or the production of new taxonomic groups, and starting with speciation. So that's macroevolution in a nutshell, right? But creationists say macroevolution, they mean something else. They don't define what it means, though. Creationists would usually say, look, whenever presented with evidence for macroevolution, they would usually say that does not count, but they don't say what would count, or at least explain it in any way that would make sense. They would say things like the change from one kind to another, but they never explain how different organisms must become before they're considered to be another kind. So they set a criteria, but then you don't know how to meet such a fluid criteria. So I guess we're going to get into the discussion as to what evidence there is for evolution, common descent, and whether or not it counts as evidence for macroevolution. Well, in a general sense, it would, but as to what creationists would mean by macroevolution, if there is evidence of that also. All right. Well, that's it for me.
Okay, thank you, Emo. A little bit of that right there was a bit muffled. I know you're on a phone, so it could be, depending on how close or how far you are. But yeah, portions of that were muffled. So, okay, there we go. Let me reset the clock. I am going to give it to Kent. And here we go. Dr. Hovind, whenever you're ready, we'll give you equal time. 12 minutes.
Well, thank you so much. Yeah, I was beginning to wonder there. It looked like Snake did not ever get to the topic. Where's the evidence for macroevolution? Instead, he wants to pick on creation. Creation is not on trial tonight. Macroevolution is. Does it happen? Where's the evidence for it? We want to see it. Okay, so let's see. Let me go to evidence. Definition of science, first of all. Science is knowledge gained by using observations and experiments to describe and explain the world around us. For example, cows produce cows. Always. You can come visit our barn. The cows show no interest in the sheep or the goats or the pine trees. None. They know they're the same kind. They know. They just know. Turn all of our animals loose. They will figure out which one is their kind. The ducks show no interest whatsoever in the fish to mate with them. Okay. So first you make an observation. I observe cows always produce cows. Always. Develop an idea why it happens. Think of experiments to test the ideas. Predict what will happen in the experiments. Observe what actually happens. And modify the ideas if predictions were wrong. Well, let's see. Cows produce cows. I think it must be genetic. I think if we keep breeding them, which we've been doing, or we let them breed themselves. We don't do that, okay? The babies will be cows. So let's see. Think of an experiment. Predict what will happen. Observe what actually happens. Yep, that happens every time. They're always cows. Seems to always work. So let's try it with the baby apes, okay? Let's see. Same thing. Apes produce apes. It must be genetic. Let's keep breeding them. Babies will be apes. They're always apes. All we've ever seen in the history of the world is animals produce what everybody with half a brain cell functioning would say are the same kind. But these guys want to believe, SpongeBob, believe that cows and bananas are related. That is not science. Science, what we can observe, study, test, and demonstrate. Let's see, I want to get to one other point here while I got time. Definition of evolution. Evolution, the process by which different kinds of living organisms are thought to have developed. They use the word kind, oh no. And diversified from earlier forms during the history of the earth. The gradual development of something, especially from a simple to a more complex form. Oh, okay. Let's see, what's the best definition of evolution? A process of gradual change that takes place over many generations, during which species of animals, plants, or insects slowly change some of their physical characteristics. Are there any limits to that? This is the whole subject of the debate. Are there limits? Can it be demonstrated? It has a limit. Okay, modern definition of evolution. Modern biology, it applies to ecology. Evolution is defined as a change in the inherited traits of a population of organisms through successive generations. Okay, let's see. Descent with modification from pre-existing species. Cumulative inherited change in a population of organisms. A process of continuous branching and diversification from common trunks. The pattern is irreversible. This pattern of irreversible separation gives life's history its basic directionality. Okay, so let's go back home and take an example. Dogs. Dogs produce dogs without exception. We got the coyote hybrid dog. They can crossbreed. So are dogs, wolves, coyotes really? I think they're the same kind. I predict plants will always produce plants, and animals will always produce animals that are the same kind. And a 4-year-old can tell you, if you can't find out it's the same kind, turn them loose into the woods. They'll tell you which ones they're interested in. They know which ones are the same kind. There are 339 breeds of dogs now recognized in American Kennel. God said they bring forth after their kind, 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 after their kind. I mean, it's in there a whole bunch of times, guys, I think, or sort. The kind or sort. He said after their kind. 24 times in the first 7 chapters of Genesis, it talks about them bringing forth after their kind or after their sort. 339 breeds of dogs probably had a common ancestor called a dog. It is still a dog. Dog, wolf, coyote probably had a common ancestor, and I do this all the time when I speak at churches. I get a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old. I go, okay, kid, here we have a dog, wolf, coyote, and a banana. Which one is not like the others? I've only ever had one kid get it wrong. He said, the boy. Well, he's right, okay. So, but then banana, okay. The Bible says they bring forth after their kind. Charlie Darwin wrote a book called The Origin of Species, and here's where the confusion comes in. Evolution, the proverbial self-licking ice cream cone. Like, coyote can mate with a dog. Okay, let's see. We get coyote, Australian shepherd mix. Wolves in the eastern United States can mate with coyotes. Wow, who'd have thunk it? Coyote meets the coy wolf. Oh, okay. Let's see. Coy dog, a hybrid from a mating of a male coyote and a female dog. Well, I guess they must be the same kind. I'll tell you what. Let's get a coy tree. A coy pigeon. I'll crossbreed the coyote with a pigeon. Yeah, they can't breed. 40 subspecies of wolf. Wow, might have had a common ancestor. Wolves of the world, the red one, the Arctic, etc. There's lots of wolves. Here's the Dihol, canid, native to Central, South, and East and Southeast Asia. Wow. Includes a wild dog. No Canis species. Oh, okay. Probably related to the biblical kind. See, man has decided to divide animals and plants up into categories. I don't think the animals or plants care at all how we classify them. Not at all. We have developed kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. Carolus Linnaeus did this. And we've decided to put the coyote and the gray wolf in a different species. Okay. I don't think they care. They're the same kind of animal. Is kind the same as family? I don't know. I don't think it matters. The point is, they always bring forth after their kind. And it's the burden of the proof is on the evolutionist to show me that it can go beyond that. Okay. There are 19 different subspecies of coyote. Okay, let's see. Coyote, wolf, 339 breeds of dogs. The wolf, coyote, jackal have 78 chromosomes. Probably had a common ancestor. Foxes, coyotes, wolves are probably the same kind. They cannot interbreed. That maybe has crossed over the barrier. I know this, the coyote and the ostrich can't breed. That I know are a different kind, okay? 34 chromosomes, huh? So does the porcupine. So does the sunflower. Can they breed? You can't go by the number of chromosomes. Just take a look. Is it interested in reproducing with the other ones of the same kind? Artichokes, look at that. 34 chromosomes. Got to be related to a fox. You can see the similarity. They're both green except for the fox, okay? Let's see. Oh, porcupines. Yeah, you wonder how they make babies. So let's see. All these different breeds of dogs probably had a common ancestor called a dog. They can bring forth, they can bring forth, they cannot bring forth, they cannot bring forth, and they cannot bring forth. Is there a morphological limit? I heard Snake on a program just before the program tonight. I just listened to a little bit of a debate he did, a couple of days ago. He said, no morphological limits. You got to be kidding. Morphological limit. Morphology, the branch of biology that deals with the form and structure of a living thing. Is there a limit to the morphology of dogs? How to breed dogs of different sizes. Zeus, largest dog ever that we know of, had an English Mastiff that weighed 343 pounds. There's a big dog. Zeus in Michigan, 3 foot 8 inch tall. Pretty good sized dog. Smallest dog, a Chihuahua named Millie, 3.8 inches tall. So let's see, 3 foot 8 or 3.8. Dogs have been bred to be from 3.8 inches tall to 44 inches tall. Is there a limit? Yes. Have they reached the limit yet? I don't know, probably getting close. Do you think they'll ever get a dog that's 8 miles tall or a half inch tall? Guys, look at me. There's a limit. Have they reached it? Don't know. Is there a limit for the world? Other people are setting world records for speed, who can run the 100-yard dash or the mile the fastest. Let's say the fastest mile is what? Under 4 minutes now. You think they'll ever run the mile in under 1 second? Or is there a limit? You guys just don't get it. Just imagine, boys and girls, all these dogs came from an amoeba millions of years ago. This is what their evolution theory teaches. All the dogs came from, there they are, the dogs came from an amoeba. Look at that. We got lines between them on a piece of paper. That's proof. And not only that, all the dogs are related to the frogs and the butterflies and the birds and the octopus and the humans. You guys, I don't understand how you can't get it, but it's obvious this whole chart is absolute propaganda baloney. They're lying. The dogs always produce dogs. Cows can jump. I accept that fact. Cows can jump. I have a video of a cow jumping over a 7-foot fence. That's pretty high jump for a cow. Is there a limit? Yeah, I believe there is. A limit, how high cows can jump. Okay, let's see. Is this the video? Will it play? Nope. Okay, I guess it won't play. But there's a cow jumping over, a bull actually, jumping over a 7-foot fence. Wow. It says here 2 6-foot fences. I accept the fact they can jump. I accept that. Therefore, this proves beyond reasonable doubt that given enough time, billions or trillions or quadrillions of years, the cow could jump over the moon. No, there's a limit. There's a limit for the dog kind. There's a limit for the pine tree kind. 115 varieties of pine trees. Might have had a common ancestor called a pine tree. But you guys want to have everybody be forced to pay that your religion teaches pine trees and dogs are related. And it does teach that. They've got them on a chart with lines connecting them. You believe dogs and frogs and pine trees and butterflies have a common ancestor. That's propaganda. That's not science. No, teacher. There's a limit how high cows can jump. Have they reached the limit? I don't know. They're probably close. 7 foot, pretty high jump for a cow. They're not going to go 50 feet or 5,000 feet. Now that I'll guarantee, okay? 16 common cattle breeds, 400 breeds of cattle. Wow. Cow, know-how. Oh, how do you know your cows? They know. Turn them loose in the field. We have emus and cows and pigs and goats all together. They never even attempt to crossbreed. The bulls go looking for the cow. They don't go looking for the emu. 4 processes of evolution. 250 recognized breeds of cows. I accept that. And they probably had a common ancestor called a cow. 6 types of corn. Probably came from corn, okay? 200 varieties of wheat. Might have had a common ancestor called wheat. You guys, I don't know how you don't get it. 4,000 kinds of potatoes. The cat kind, I don't know where the limit is. I don't know. Noah might have had 6 different pairs of cats on the ark. And it could be that the lions are not related to their common modern pussycat. I don't know. That'd be a good field of research. But the burden of proof is not on me to prove that kind of stuff. You're supposed to give the evidence for macroevolution. Where is it? The fact that they look alike, is that proof they're related? You draw these lines on paper with your family trees and say, wow, look at this, boys and girls. We've got them all connected with lines. Therefore, the human and the bird and the dinosaurs and the ladybugs and the pine trees and the worms had a common ancestor. This is propaganda. This is not science. Over to you.
Okay, thank you, Kent. That is 12 minutes on the dot. Much appreciated. Gentlemen, we're going to move into an 8-minute rebuttal. So that'll be broken up for the evolutionist side, however they'd like to. And then, of course, we'll give Kent 8 minutes. And then what I want to do is just take one of the many topics brought up and discuss them one at a time for as long as is necessary, I guess. So, okay, to the evolution side, we're going to give you 8 minutes. And gentlemen, whenever you're ready, the floor is yours. And I am assuming, Snake, are you going to start with the rebuttal and then hand it over to Emo, or?
Yeah, if that's cool with him. Unless he's got something on his mind. All right.
Now you go ahead.
Okay. So, I guess starting with one thing that jumped out to me was, sorry about my shaky camera right now, but I did not say that there are no morphological limits, Kent. So I don't know why you'd watch if you weren't going to pay any attention. I did not say that there are no morphological limits. In fact, I explicitly said that there is a limit, especially when it relates to size. And this is the only example you ever bring up, which is completely irrelevant. One, I already showed you examples of an evolutionary series that you yourself, well, I don't know if you accepted, but every single creationist organization I know of, maybe yours doesn't, accepts fossil horses are related to modern horses. In fact, there are hundreds of these examples that you have to accept no matter what kind of creationist you are, because otherwise they can't all fit on the ark. So you have to condense some of these animals that are similar based on anatomy in order to fit them on the ark. So you always bring up this size limit thing, and you say you can't get a dog the size of Texas. You can't get a dog that's 8 miles high. How is this remotely relevant? Do you think that any scientist, any supporter of evolution thinks that we can evolve into 8-mile-high bats or anything remotely that size? Is there anything even living that size? Why is this relevant to you? Because this size limit doesn't address anything on the evolution side. It doesn't address the morphological limits, which is that we know bones can change size, shape, orientation, number, and location. Tissues can do the same thing. So, for example, whale evolution. There's no limit that you talked about. That we're not talking about a size limit. We're not talking about a animal becoming the size of Texas. We're talking about a wolf-sized animal that is good at swimming, that loses its hair, loses hind limbs. Well, they fuse into a. Well, actually, they don't fuse. That's seals. But their tail gets larger. They gain basically a fluke on their tail. their nose bone moves up, and maybe they get more vertebra, more ribs. They increase in size. This is all stuff that we all accept. So that's the reason I brought up creationism, is to try and find the fact that there is some common agreement here. But the fact is that what we agree upon with microevolution is enough to justify macroevolution, because what macroevolution is just microevolution plus another microevolution. So the question is not, can we get something the size of Texas? The question is, where is the limit that you're proposing? How many microevolutionary changes can occur? So with whales, can an animal get more webbed feet? Can an animal get better at swimming? And at the same time, can these populations lose their hair and get better at swimming? Can they also get a little bit larger? Can they also move their nose bones up to get a blowhole? Can they also get a larger tail? Are these all possible within the same population? There's absolutely no reason why it shouldn't be. And that's where your inconsistent standards come from, because you accept them in low doses, but not in higher doses for some reason. And the way that you avoid that is by just talking about dogs the size of Texas, which is completely irrelevant. And speaking of irrelevant comparisons, why do you think that anyone thinks cows would breed with emus? Is this how you think evolution works? I know when pressed, you will say, no, that's not how anyone says evolution works. So don't bring it up. It just makes you look like you have no idea what you're talking about. Donnie, how am I on time? Am I splitting this? Are you going to cut me off halfway?
Well, you're just about to hit 5 minutes. So that would be 3 minutes left. You can either give it to Emo, take another minute. It's totally up to you guys.
Yeah, I'll just say you shouldn't compare dogs with bananas. Maybe try to compare dogs and wolves and coyotes with like bear dogs or even foxes or other fossil canines. I don't know why you're leaping to these clearly very distantly related things instead of the things that lie transitionally between them. Yeah, go ahead, Emo.
Okay, thank you, Snake. Let me pause the timer real quick. Emo, you have just under 3 minutes for any points you'd like to add. Because you were slightly muffled before, it could be depending on your how far away you are from the phone. So maybe just make sure to be speaking clearly in the speaker part, and we should be good. So, Emo, let me start the timer again, and you're good to go.
Before you start, is this clear enough, or do I have to get it closer?
No, that sounds good. That sounds good.
Okay. All right. So as I said before, I can give evidence of macroevolution, or at least what biologists would describe as macroevolution, but it never counts for macroevolution to a creationist because they use a different definition. By macroevolution, Kent means a change in kind, whereby one kind becomes another kind. But the thing is, I have no idea what a kind is. I mean, I know how I acknowledge that there are different kinds and how they're identified, but I don't know how much a kind has to diversify before it turns into another kind, right? So if Kent would explain that to me, at least explain how different organisms must become before they're considered another kind, then I can try to get that evidence for him, as opposed to providing evidence for macroevolution that he does not accept as macroevolution. All right. What else? I was talking about limitations. Evolution doesn't have to account for organisms jumping over the moon or whatever. All organisms that both extant and extinct exist within the limitations of of physics. So we don't have to explain organisms transcending the laws of physics and jumping over the moon. What else? Yeah, basically with me, I just want to understand, what do creationists mean when they say macroevolution, and Like how they expect to see that happening. Do they expect to see that unfolding in a single generation? Or are they even asking for evidence of evolution to begin with? Because usually when a creationist asks for something and you hard press them on it, they'd say something like, oh, a dog giving birth to a cat. And that's not evolution. I mean, yes, that's your criteria, but at the end of the day, that would not be evolution. You're asking for evidence of something else. It's a common practice with creationists where they would debate and say, oh, speciation is not macroevolution. But they never explain what really is and what would count as it. So what I would like to do and at least accomplish in this discussion is to find out what is macroevolution when a creationist say it, and how much organisms must change before it's considered a macroevolutionary event or a change in kind, and then I can try to get that evidence as opposed to providing evidence that wouldn't count. All right, so that would just be it for me and my rebuttal portion, and I'm waiting for the discussion portion.
Okay, there we go. That's 8 minutes. We're going to give Kent 8 minutes, and then we're going to take each of these questions or topics just one at a time and really engage them. So, Dr. Dino, whenever you're ready, you've got roughly 8 minutes.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. That gives me something to work with, guys, and I thank you. Bible says they'll bring forth after their kind. There are 500 varieties of chickens. Might have had a common ancestor called a chicken. How far do the chickens have to vary before they're wanting or willing or able to mate with the whales or the trees? Okay, they bring forth after their kind. Let's see, 225 species of owls, 8 varieties of bears. Do you think the owls and bears can breed or could ever breed or came from a common ancestor? How about the different kinds of fish? Sure, there's variations happen a lot. A lot of variations happen. Farmers try to make them happen. Farmers they breed the cows that give more milk to get a dairy herd, or they breed the ones that give more beef to get a meat herd, okay? But that doesn't prove anything about the cows coming from an amoeba, which is what your textbooks teach. This is my objection. You guys teach and want me to pay to have everybody learn, like this is part of science, that the humans and the birds have a common ancestor with the reptiles and the ladybugs. So my simple question for both of you to answer tonight, or each of you, do you believe you are related to a ladybug? Simple question. I'll give you trillions of generations and quadrillions of years. Do you believe over quadrillions of years, if we could go back, you have a common ancestor with a ladybug, and where's the evidence for that? Where is the evidence for ladybugs and humans having a common ancestor? I think the textbooks show the amoeba turning to a biology teacher. This isn't science. This is my whole point. It's a religion. You guys believe in these family trees. You asked, you can give evidence for macroevolution, but it never counts. Well, the purpose of this debate is for you to supply that evidence. What is the best evidence you know of where we've observed an animal or a plant change into something that anybody would consider a different kind? Just because man decides to draw a line and call it a new species, it's still the same kind. Are they still interfertile? The dog, the wolf, and the coyote can still interbreed. They're the same kind of animal. Can the dog, your chart here shows the birds related to the frogs. It's right there on the chart for the kids to study. Can you give me any evidence that frogs and birds have a common ancestor? What would the evidence for that be? I'd like to see that. You claim macroevolution happened, and that's only number 5 out of 6 definitions of evolution. They hate it when I do that, but you're skipping the first 4 altogether. Watch my video series for the first 4 that they cannot answer at all. But no, the purpose of the debate, the title, where's the reasonable evidence for macroevolution? I have yet to see it. You can imagine that it happened. Finding a fossil isn't going to be evidence. No fossil counts as evidence for this, what we're talking about. When you find a fossil, all you know is it died. You cannot prove the Eohippus fossil you found had any children. You certainly couldn't prove it had children that were different. So in an honest court of law, no fossils would count. How could you show an animal producing a different kind of offspring? Every farmer in the world will tell you, yes, we see variations, wild variations sometimes, but they're still the same kind, observable to be the same kind. There are lots of mutations happen. They're still the same kind of creature. We got some ducks down here in our lake. They have a mutation. The bones of the skull didn't grow together, right? And so the feathers poof out on one side of their head. It's a mutation. I don't know if it makes them dumber than normal. Most ducks are dumb to begin with, but they're pretty dumb. But they're still a duck. It didn't change to anything else. You're going to count on mutations, which are harmful, fatal, or neutral. Nobody's observed a good mutation that adds information. If you could find one, I would ask, who's it going to marry? Don't you have to have two of the opposite sex, except in San Francisco, at the same time? And they got to find each other and be interested? You got a lot of problems if you're going to believe in this evolution religion. You guys are welcome to believe it, but I resent you calling it science, and I resent it being taught in the textbooks. These charts that they show do not have any scientific evidence for a frog and a bird and a fish to be connected with a line as if they're a common ancestor down to a protozoa. My whole point is, where's the evidence for this? This isn't science. They're teaching a religion. They believe this, and you guys probably really honestly believe it. I wouldn't question that. But it's not science. I wish you could admit it's a religion. You draw lines on paper. Let me get the big one here, the big chart right here. Oh. This one. Animals and fungi and plants have a common ancestor. So they're saying they're all related. They say humans are related to everything. They're all on the chart together. They draw these lines on paper connecting them. Oh, right here's one. Do you believe you are related to a ladybug? Just a simple yes or no. I'll give you millions of generations. Time will not matter. Is it possible for any creature to turn into both a human and a ladybug? If so, where's the evidence of this happening? I don't think it exists, and the burden of proof's on you to show real scientific evidence for macroevolution. These charts show macroevolution. The shark came and the fern. Whoa, the shark and the fern are related to a starfish and an octopus. Do you believe that? This is what's taught to the kids. I don't believe there's any evidence for this whatsoever. I think this chart is pure religious propaganda. Okay, open discussion. Pick any one of those guys. So far, I've seen no evidence other than, well, we know what happens. No, let me see it. Show it to me. Make it happen again. Let's see it. Go ahead.
All right, gentlemen, real quick before we get into the much anticipated discussion portion, everybody's favorite part of the debate. We got a huge chat right now in terms of the live chat, close to 300 people. So please, if you are sending in questions, either tag myself or tag Praise I Am, and we will organize them here for the audience Q&A. So since Kent just ended with his rebuttal, we have concluded the openings and rebuttals. So gentlemen, Taylor or Emo, will give you the opportunity to either ask the first question, present the first argument, and then we'll go one at a time. Gentlemen, go ahead.
All right.
All right.
I would like to start the first argument. Sorry about that. So, Ken said a lot of things. He said something about new information and additional information. Now, I don't really know what creationists mean by new information with respect to an organism's genome. I have no idea what that means. But additional information, I think I have an idea what that means, or at least what they try to mean by when they say that. So Michael Behe in Darwin Devolves argued that he was arguing about polar bears losing copies of a particular gene, right? That produces amylase, I think. Yeah, so they were losing copies of the gene. And he said that would constitute a loss of information or devolution, right? Now, the thing is, dogs actually have that same gene, and they have additional copies, right? So instead of losing copies and decreasing information or losing information, they have additional copies, which would, by that logic, mean that is additional information. So that would be an example of additional information. I don't know what new information is. I have no, with respect to an organism's genome, no idea what that means. But additional information, that's something that happens according to the logic of creations.
Okay, we'll stop it there on that topic. Hand it back to Kent. Go ahead for your response. Take as much time as you need.
A copy of a gene that's already existing that now has a duplicate is not new information. If I give you a copy of a piece of paper, say, here you go, here's this information. Oh, better yet, I'm going to run it through the copy machine and make 4,000 copies of this, and I hand you a stack of papers. Now you have 4,000 copies of the same information. You didn't add any information. You added a bunch of bulk and wasted a bunch of paper. So to have a duplicate of an existing gene is not new information. It's the same information to build the same thing. I've got a picture of a cow somewhere in here with an extra leg growing out of its back. Well, it already had a leg. Your chart shows an amoeba turning into a human. How many things do humans have that amoebas do not have? Do amoebas have eyes, ears, legs, arms? Where's this information for all that coming from? To change from an amoeba, which they showed at the bottom here, to a dog is going to be a whole lot of new information. Do amoeba have hair? Do amoeba have can amoeba bark? Do amoeba have ears that they can perk up? Do they have a nose? Do they have eyes? There's a lot of information in a dog that is not in an amoeba. So your chart that you guys worship shows the amoeba turning to a dog and a frog. A frog has a lot of information amoebas don't have. So does a butterfly. So where's this new information coming from? Do you think duplicating the chromosomes in an amoeba will gradually give it wings? Go ahead.
So the limit that we were talking about earlier is actually mutations to inherited traits of the parent generation. So would you accept a change in DNA sequence that causes new functionality? Is that new information?
All we've ever observed, and the topic of the debate
well, it's a yes or no question.
I'm going to answer it. All we've ever observed is mutations that happen like that destroy information, scramble information, they don't give any new information. Show me an example. Give me the best example you have of a creature getting new information that added a new function, something that can be inherited.
We talked about this before, the multicellular algae that evolved from single-celled. I actually got John Maddox to admit that this was new information.
So going from multi-celled to single-celled, you're saying there was new information added?
Single-celled to multi-celled. Because now they have a new ability that they didn't have before, and it is inherited. That ability would be cell differentiation and forming bodies, discrete bodies, not just clumps of random cells, but discrete clonal bodies that are limited by a certain number and which can differentiate each other into certain cells that basically create the new babies and the other cells that form the protective body.
Okay, let me make sure I understand what you're claiming. You're claiming single-celled organisms have been observed to become multicellular, and they now have new functions. Is that what you're claiming? And can you give me the name of that organism that did that?
Chlamydomonas reinhardti.
What we have observed is single-celled creatures becoming colonies to protect themselves. Our ducks hang out together to protect themselves. So do the frogs. Okay, but that's not is considered a single organism. It's a colony of organisms working together. Cellular. Are there any two-celled organisms? Cellular organisms are divided into two groups: prokaryotes and eukaryotes. What are the two-celled? Unicellular organisms, there's plenty of. But there aren't any two-celled organisms. There are colonies where they cluster together to accomplish a job, but that's not like termites cluster together to tear down a house. But they're still individual termites. I would have to disagree with you, and I think you'd have to demonstrate to me how that process you're claiming could change an amoeba to a whale or a human. But that's what the textbooks teach.
Well, right now we're just talking about addition of information. So it is a multicellular life cycle. It's not clusters just creating colonies, because you can't just stick another random cell onto it, and if you cut a cell out, it will die. These are discrete bodies that are indivisible and not combinable. So this is a multicellular organism that has a multicellular body, and it was evolved from single cells.
And do we see this happening now? You're claiming it happened long ago, or where do we see this happening?
No, this was a modern experiment. They did this in the lab multiple times to actually different species.
Is this the one you're talking about? Trichoplex?
No. Chlamydomonas reinhardti.
I didn't understand the word of that.
That's the scientific name of the algae, not a protozoan.
Okay, well, I will be thrilled to look at that. Trichoplex is made up of a few thousand cells of 6 types. Go ahead.
You say that almost every time we talk, and every time we come back, you've done no research on it.
It's a busy life around here, and but okay.
Seems important.
You're saying that we have observed single-celled organisms unite together to become more than a colony. It's actually a new creature with new information. Is that your claim?
Yeah, and they've isolated the mutation that led to this. So it's a change in sequence that leads to new functionality.
And the new function of this is what?
Is that it has a body and it has tissue differentiation.
And you think that is evidence that it could gradually turn into a whale or a bird or a butterfly over time?
Well, it's a piece of that evidence, but what I'm responding to is the fact that you claim that there was no mutation that can cause an adding of information, and that's an example that is proof positive that, in fact, mutations can add information.
So the single-celled creatures got together and made a body that now has new information. Is there something new in the gene code, you mean, or do they still retain the original gene code of the single-celled creatures?
They didn't get together. They divided from a single one that had a mutation, and they divided a certain number of times and stopped dividing. Unlike the normal single-celled ones, which just divide infinitely and can combine in any random number, or go off alone. These ones stop at a certain number, and they also stick together and die if they can't separate, and only some of them divide and create new ones, and this is inherited.
Okay, wait. Only the individual cells divide? Can the whole creature, the whole new body, mate with another one of the same kind?
They're not sexual.
So
it's asexual reproduction.
Each cell is asexual. The whole thing is reproducing at once, or each cell has to divide individually?
It's kind of like it shoots off. There are a couple of cells that remain actively reproductive. So it buds off one of them, then that cell grows into a new body. That one can bud off one cell, which can grow into a new body, and they all have these same bodies.
It's still back to one cell reproducing. The whole thing.
That's how sexual beings reproduce.
Actually, gentlemen, if I could jump in real quick. Snake, I think that's the one on the screen. Is that what you were saying, Snake? Cladomonas? Right there?
That's one of them.
Okay.
So I just wanted one more sentence. I want Emo to hop in here, but yeah, the way we produce is by shooting a single cell into another single cell and combining into a single cell. So that's...
Well, there's a good article refuting what you're claiming here on creation.com. You can read it for yourself, go down deep state on long stage. But did it create, is this process, what we observed here, after 750 generations, they took on a multicellular form. This way, the algae were too big for the predators to eat. They were not fully multicellular, breaking apart into single cells before dividing. So it's still a colony, not a new organism, not a single body like you're claiming. And I did do my research, okay? It seems to go through a coordinated life cycle. Evolutionists claim this is a demonstration, or at least a significant part of evolution, from single-celled forms to multicellular. They're very similar at genetic level, even though they look very different. What causes this change from single-celled existence to at least a form of multicellularity? It's when they introduced a certain predator into the mix, is my understanding of this. It is significant that both species have the same gene, leaving the question unanswered as to how this gene, necessary for multicellularity, evolved in the first place. So if each cell already had this genetic information to bond together when an enemy comes, how did that evolve? I don't think you're giving an answer at all, and I certainly don't think anybody should say, wow, that's proof whales came from an amoeba. because of this one single-celled creature learning to have to cooperate with other cells of the same kind for defense. Is that enough to convince you that the Bible's wrong and Jesus was wrong and the creation of Adam was not the beginning and that humans and whales and pine trees and beetles? I mean, are you related to a ladybug because of this?
Well, first of all, evolution does not prove Jesus wrong. That's a completely different topic. But yeah, of course, these were the same genes, but one of them has a mutation to that same gene. That's the point. And saying that they're not multicellular is like saying that humans are not multicellular because we reproduce with a single sperm cell and a single egg.
Okay, so you're saying the topic of the debate tonight, what is the reasonable evidence for macroevolution? You're saying this creature right here is evidence for the evolution charts that we teach our kids, that amoeba turned to a human.
Well, how many times do I have to say no? That is part of that. But the reason I brought that up is to disprove your claim that no mutation can add information.
How do you know this was a mutation? This was already in the gene code for this creature to do this.
The genes were sequenced and they compared them, and there was a difference in the gene, and we know those differences arise due to mutations.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm going to make notes here. So you know that the genes changed and added new information to change it from this single-celled creature to a colony that can now fight off an enemy, but goes only single-celled go back to evolve again or to divide again. All right. All right. What's your next best evidence?
Emo, jump in there. Sorry for hogging the mic.
Go ahead, Emo.
Yeah. For one, I don't have any like best evidence for macroevolution. There is evidence for macroevolution that I can give. Well, you and Snake and you were talking about new information, which I don't really know what that means. But additional information is something that also happens. All right, and it's simply following the logic that if you lose copies of a gene, then that's a loss of information. Fine. Therefore, if you add copies of a gene, that's additional information. Right? Now, you brought up the analogy of if you copied pages from a book. The analogy is kind of bad because reason being, words don't do work in a book, right? Whereas genes and so on, they do work in the cell. They actually perform function. So a better analogy would be to compare genes, or at least their products, the protein products, to machines, right? If you have one machine working in a factory, and then you got 10 more of that same machine, it's going to increase production. You're going to increase efficiency. You're going to have an increase in what's being done in the factory, right? So that analogy would be better, at least using machines as opposed to pages that don't actually do work in a book, right? So duplicating a page is not, I don't think it's analogous to genes in a cell.
Okay, so rather than giving you 400 copies of the same page, I can give you 400 machines. Let's give you 400 typewriters. And this now does what? This is evidence for evolution? I don't understand how.
It's an analogy. I'm just talking about the analogy. But if you want evidence for evolution in terms of adding information, then I can show you where dogs has duplicated genes that increase their efficiency to digest starch.
So to duplicate the genes to increase the efficiency. So if a person works out with weights and gets bigger muscles and they can now lift more weights, are they still a human, or are they changing to something else? They increase their efficiency, but they didn't change to a new kind of creature. If you train your dog to run faster, it's still a dog. This is not changing it to a new kind of animal. This isn't anything going to, what you guys claim with your trees of life is that an amoeba turned to a whale and a human. I don't see any evidence for that at all.
Yeah. No one is saying amoebas turned into whales. And what do you mean by a change in kind? That's what I was trying to say in the beginning. How different must organisms become before they're considered a different kind? Because every time I give you evidence for evolution, you're going to say, "Oh, it's still called a dog. It's still called this." I know that's how names are assigned to organisms. What I'm interested in is what physiological or genetic change is required, or how much they have to change before it's considered a change in kind. All right, and then I can try to show you that as opposed to.
Because we already know there are slight changes, right?
That was mumbled. I didn't understand that.
We already know that there are slight changes within the kinds. So we would like to know how much is required and what do you think the limit is? Where do they stop adding up?
Well, you're supposed to give the evidence that it happened. You want the kids to be taught this kind of stuff. The protozoa turned to a human. The charts show, you mentioned earlier, Emo, a second ago, that no one is saying that amoeba turned to a whale. Yes, they are. This chart is teaching the kids the protozoa, a single-celled creature, turned to a human and a fish and all of them. They do teach the amoeba turned to a whale. And I'm saying there's no evidence for that. That's not science. It's a religious belief. Evidence for that. That's not science. It's a religious belief.
We're getting a little bit of echo from you.
I can't understand a word of that, Donnie. I can't get a word of that. Can you?
I think there was a bit of an echo there from Calm Emo, but I think we're good now. Snake, I think it was you who just finished saying something. If you want to reiterate that, then we'll give Kent the chance to respond. Go ahead.
I was just saying there was an echo. But to answer Kent, no, there's the theory would be that the protozoa basically made slimes, which made sponges, which made like sea cucumber type things, which made worms, which made eels, which made fish, which made walking fish, which made salamanders, which made lizards, which made rodents, which made lemurs, which made apes, which made humans. That's a very, very simplified version. But no, it's not amoeba to whale. So that's a very misleading way to phrase that.
I think what's misleading is drawing these charts for the kids and having a line from an amoeba to a whale.
Why do you think the line? How do you think the lines are decided on?
Stupidity.
So not anatomical similarity?
And I can draw a line between a Volkswagen and a Corvette.
Mm-hmm.
They're both designed. They both have some similarities. But my point is, all we've ever observed is amoeba produced baby amoeba, octopus produced baby octopus. There's no reason to have these lines between them. This isn't science. You do teach, and the evolutionists do teach. I'll show you right here, right there. The amoeba at the bottom turned to a whale. There's the whale, top left corner. They do teach this. I don't care how many generations. You're going to have to add a whole lot of information to change from an amoeba to a whale. My objection is this is taught. It's not science. It's a religious belief. And until it's proven, you should teach it in religious schools, not science class. This isn't science. None of this chart is science. They drew a bunch of lines on paper. That's all they did. They can make up the story and say, we think there's relationship. Okay, you can think what you want. Show me a protozoa produce. They got it going to a sponge. You said the protozoa turned to slime, which turned to a sponge. Can you show me it happen again make it happen again in the laboratory?
So yeah, I don't know why you're leaving out the transition part. So do you deny that there are kinds with different yet related organisms?
I can't understand your verbiage. Do I deny there's what now?
Kinds of organisms with different yet related organisms.
I think there are many different kinds of organisms. Yeah, probably 8,000 or 10,000 different kinds on Noah's Ark.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just the ones on land. The fish didn't have to go on the ark. They had plenty of water outside. So there may be 20 or 30,000 different kinds of organisms on the planet.
How do you know they're related?
I don't know that they're related. I think they all have a common designer. I think the fact that we can, they put a fish and a frog and a human and a bird together on the chart here, I don't think they're related at all.
What I'm talking about is the ones that are related, that you accept are related, like dogs and wolves or the mesohippus and horses. How do you know they're related?
Well,
how do creationists decide that?
Well, the burden of proof is not on the creationists to prove this. The burden of proof is on you guys to prove that the amoeba can turn to anything other than an amoeba, and that the whale and the pine tree.
So
Is that on our end, the echo?
it's just an echo.
Actually, let me stop right there, Snake, and I'll let you continue. Call Mima. I think it almost sounds like you have the debate playing on in the background, because when you unmuted, it started to come through again. But that's fine. Looks like we're good now. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Taylor. Finish your thought there.
The reason we bring that up is because you guys agree to some extent with comparative anatomy, and yet just kind of arbitrarily decide that it doesn't work anymore when it comes to macroevolution. So I'm trying to find a place of agreement, and you're just kind of saying, I'm not going to talk about that because I know you don't want to, because I'm using that to demonstrate the macroevolution has no limit that you can point to in terms of the changes that we've observed are possible adding up in the same population.
Not that I don't want to talk about it. I'm willing. That's what I do all the time. I have a YouTube channel every night. I produce thousands of videos on these topics. I do believe probably the Chihuahua and the Great Dane and the Dachshund have a common ancestor, but that does not prove it goes beyond that to anything other than dog. Dog, wolf, coyote. That's what I went through earlier. Probably had a common ancestor. But you guys want to believe, capital B, that the dog and the banana have a common ancestor, don't you? You do believe that. Dog and banana are related. I covered all this. I think probably all the different, we would consider the dog kind. Maybe it's the same family. Maybe it's the same order. I don't know. But that doesn't prove they're related to anything else. As I said, I don't think the coyotes and the wolves care how we classify them. They can still interbreed. 19 species of coyote. They can mate with dogs and wolves. And they normally don't, but they can. But they can't mate with the sunflower. That I know. And you guys got a sunflower and a coyote connected with your lines on your chart. You have a great faith, and all you have is a faith. It's a religion. That's all. I wish you could admit you believe in evolution, but you want to keep calling it science. It's not science.
So since that range of diversity is possible and you accept that, why should we not accept that these are related by the same exact principle?
I could not prove those are related. The fact that they're similar, could they have the same designer? Get all the paintings by Picasso and put them side by side. You'd say, wow, there's some similarities here. So it's the same guy designing them. You don't know that those two are related. You know that they are similar.
But creationists know that these are related.
Well, I don't. You don't either. Do you know that Mesohippus turned to Equus? Do you know that?
They claim it.
Fossils in order. One has 4 toes, one has 1 toe. For one thing, that's losing information. Number 2, there are some really fast animals on 4, 5 toes. Try the cheetah, So it's not an advantage to get a hoof.
I don't know about you, but I'd need some extra information if I was to support my entire weight on a single toe. But yeah, creationist organizations claim that this is indeed the truth, and you have to, some of these are related, or else they wouldn't fit on the ark.
What you have here with Mesohippus and all these creatures is fossils, bones from the dirt. You do not know that they're related. You can line them up like that and say, oh, wow, look at the progression. You don't know that they progressed. Maybe the Mesohippus is still alive today, producing other Mesohippuses.
Yeah. So same as wolves still exist, even though dogs are from wolves. So all we're doing is using the exact same technique as wolves and dogs are related, but just applying them to other similar organisms. And I want to check in with Emo because I know there's a delay and it's hard for him to kind of get in there.
Well, let's take one topic at a time. You mentioned about put all the weight on one hoof, like that's an advantage. Elephants are lots heavier than horses. They got individual toes. So it's not necessarily, this is crazy. This argument means nothing. I think elephants are designed to have elephant feet, and they like them pretty well. I think horses are designed to have horse feet, and they like them pretty well. Cheetah can run much faster than a horse, and they don't have hooves. So this is such a silly argument to line up the different kinds of feet going from 4-toed to 1-toed, which would be losing, not gaining, and then saying that's an advantage? No, the horse was designed to have 1 hoof. Many animals have 2 hooves. They seem to like it. I don't know. Then they always produce other babies with 2 hooves.
You lose toes, but you'd gain information in the 1 toe that's supporting the whole weight. of the bigger animal.
Oh, wait. Do you say it's gaining information because it has one toe to support all the weight? Why didn't the elephant do that?
The one toe is gaining information if it's able to support more weight.
The toe gained information.
Even though it lost some toes, so you're sure losing the other information for the other toes, but you're gaining information for the stronger toe that's supporting the whole weight.
So the toe gained information, or it gained strength?
Well, if functionality is information.
Well, I think the horse's gene code tells it to produce a hoof.
Okay.
That's in the gene code as the baby's developing inside the mother.
That's how DNA works. Emu?
Help me, Emu, help me. Okay.
Help me, Emu. I know there's a delay, so I'm trying to get you in here.
Okay. Okay.
I know there's a delay, so I'm trying to get you in here.
Okay, I got to jump in right there. So
can you hear me?
there's something with Mike. Yeah, okay. I just muted Call Me Emo. So I don't know what's going on with your Android there, Call Me Emo, but anytime you unmute, now we can hear the feedback of what we've been saying. But I will say this, we've got just about 10,000 questions. Time has flown by. We've got over 300 people in the live chat. Did we want to start moving into some quick closing statements in order that we've got enough time to get through some of these audience questions? Gentlemen, I don't want to, stop you guys prematurely in case there's a few other things you wanted to bring up. How would the debaters like to proceed?
I'd like to go to questions, but whatever they want.
Okay, let's do this. Call Mimo. Let's try and unmute you one more time and see if we can get that last question from you in. If it doesn't work, then we're just going to go right to closing statements. So call Mimo, unmute, and then we'll give this one last shot. Emo, are you there? Okay, well, we tried. Mike, if you want to try and unmute and ask your question, let's try in 3, 2, 3. No. 2. So, that's not going too well.
Yeah, it's happening again.
Okay, unfortunately. Okay, so unfortunately, we're going to have to. Okay, Snake, if there's one final question you wanted to ask Kent, then we're going to jump into some closing statements and then take a few audience questions. Go ahead, Snake.
Well, I did want to just go over how predictive hypotheses work in science. Are we doing this in addition to closing statements, or?
Well, I was going to say, if you wanted to bring up one more point or question for Kent to address, then we'll get into some closing. Since we were going to have Emo ask one last question, his mic's not working for some reason now. I thought I'd just give you the last question to ask Kent, but it's up to you, or we can go right into closing statements. Snake, what do you feel best?
Yeah, I guess I'll do what would be your response to the fact that ERVs are really good ways to track common ancestry, and the fact that it's basically mathematically impossible for them to be in the same location as they are in humans and chimps, not champs.
Well, if you think ERVs are evidence for evolution, I think we could point out factories that produce cars probably have similar procedure. I bet they put the frame together first. Wow, that proves they're related. No, that's the good way to do the design. You build the frame and then put the body on and then put the wheels on. There's probably a process that would be very similar. That would be building a Volkswagen or building a Corvette. I bet there's a similar process. So human endogenous retroviruses, ERVs as they're called, is not evidence for evolution. I got a whole series on that. I actually did a YouTube on my channel, Kent Hovind Official, about that, about the ERVs. So are you saying, now you're saying this is another evidence for evolution because of the ERVs that they thought to be junk, but now they know that they have a function? ERV sequences initially got their name because they showed strong sequence, similar known to viruses. Then they proclaimed the animal genomes evolved to their present state in part by repeated infection of viruses. You need to really study more on ERV. There's been some great articles done on quite a few different creation websites on this topic. But I just want to understand now. Are you claiming that the evidence you have for evolution is the single-celled creature becoming multicellular and the ERVs? That's your two best evidences, or do you have other ones?
Let's stay on the topic of the ERVs. You kind of ignored everything I brought up in the opening statement, like the predictive function. It shouldn't be possible for this process of evolution to predict and to cross-confirm so many other different methods relying on the same answer if it wasn't true. But staying on the topic of ERV, so very few of the ERVs actually have function, let alone positive. So if you're relying on the fact that there's some of them that are functional as points for creationism, it's a really terrible design to somehow insert vital functions after the organism is already out there living, breathing, breeding, because the creator could just put it in the original genome. The fact that there is a function from infections is not pointing to design. It's pointing to co-option of viral functions, which would be evolution.
Okay, let me jump in there real quick. If you're done with your point there, Snake, Kent, take as much time as you need to respond, and then Taylor, for your response, let's make it your concluding statement, because I could certainly listen to this all day, but we are running low on time, and we do have some audience questions. So, Kent, feel free to respond to whatever Snake said there. Then we're gonna jump into concluding statements, starting with Snake. Go ahead, Kent.
Well, I don't think we understand all the functions of the ERVs to begin with. The ERVs play an important controlling immune responses role. They play a role in controlling immune response. Let's see, ERVs initiate immunity factors. Obviously, a mammal would get very sick and have difficulty surviving without ERVs regulating their genome. The fact that there are things we don't understand about gene code or human life or any kind of life form doesn't prove evolution. There's a lot of buttons on my phone. I don't understand what they do. A lot of functions on there. Just, okay, it's got a, I don't know, but it does has a function. ERVs do have a function. More detail about ERVs, why the evolution story is completely backwards when it comes to explaining their presence in the genome. Let's see. ERVs, animal ERVs, only after God cursed the creation for man's sin. This began a process of degeneration and corruption. Everything is degenerating, falling apart. There's a good article back in 2008 where they said, hey, retroviruses they're not evidence for evolution. The data suggests that ERVs may regulate human transcription on a large scale. They've known this for a long time. So that's not evidence for evolution at all. Plenty of that. Scientists identify new beneficial function of ERVs. Wow. Back in 2014, they knew that. So I think that that's maybe a whole topic for a whole debate, if you would like, just on ERV. But tonight's topic was, what's the reasonable evidence for macroevolution? ERVs are not evidence for macroevolution. They're designed to be part of your immune system. Known this article right here, virology. Protect us from viral infection. Endogenous retroviruses protect us. So they're not a junk DNA. It's critical. You got to have it. You may not know the function of it. There's probably things on your car that'll work automatically. You may not even know they're working for you. Like some people, never mind, off on a rabbit trail. So I will do more on that if you would like on ERVs, Taylor. But I don't think the fact that we don't understand all the functions of it is evidence that it evolved from chance, that we came from an amoeba. So I never got an answer from either one of you to my simple question. Don't be embarrassed. Do you believe over billions of generations you're related to a ladybug?
Taylor, if you want, you can answer that before concluding statements.
Yes, that is the theory of evolution.
Okay. So Professor Dave's related to a strawberry and you're related to a ladybug. Great. We'll make a chart out of that one.
All right, gentlemen, fantastic debate, huge audience, tons of fun, very engaging, lots of good points discussed. Snake, I'm sure there's a few things you want to respond to there. And in order for us to wrap up our thoughts, wrap up our points, and feel like we had more than enough time to say what we need to say, let's say up to 5-minute concluding statements, and then we're going to get into a few audience questions. So Taylor, feel free to take your 5 minutes. Go ahead.
We went over the way the scientific method works. We didn't really get to it much during the debate, but I think there's a reason we didn't kind of cover that, which is because if a particular method works, if it's true, it should be able to apply and make predictions about the real world. The way that evolution can be applied to the real world is that, okay, we know that all these fossils are different ages. We know that because the Earth would have melted if it wasn't. So the question is, why are they different? And if we go and assume, well, assume the theory of evolution, it makes certain predictions, right? So if it's true, we should find this, this, and this. We should find morphological gaps here, here, and here. We go and look for them. There they are. They fit the pattern of evolutionary theory. And there's no other theory which can do this. So that's how science works. You can actually confirm things that you haven't seen over millions of years personally using that method. I also went over comparative anatomy and genomics, how these two different methods create the same trees. So the fact that, it said, oh, so of course they'd have similar DNA if they have similar anatomy. Well, the fact with comparative genomics is we're comparing things that have no actual reason to be similar at all, like broken genes, pseudogenes, or infections. That's the point with herbs is, so you said that it's corruption that was done post-creation. So they are infections. So it's actually impossible now for your whole story to be true, because if they're indeed infections, that means that the same species infected humans and chimps in the same place, in the same gene, hundreds of different times. And this is the chances of that are so small that it's several orders of magnitude. It's 1 in several orders of magnitude larger than the amount of molecules in the universe. So basically 0, as close to 0 as you can get without being 0. And the fact that the very small amount of these are in fact functional shows that is evidence for evolution because of co-option of viral elements. Now, this wouldn't happen under a created schema. Because 1, it can't infect different species at the same place in the same location, has no reason to. There's no functional reason to do this. And there are ones that are confirmed to have no function. And if you co-opt the function of an infectious gene of other horizontal gene transfer, that is evolution. I gave evidence that the known variation exceeds variation gaps between the declared kinds. So creationists declare there are kinds. We have an agreement there that there are certain ranges of animals that are related, and they vary in their size and the orientation, location, size, number, shape of their various features, such as most notably bones, but it also works with muscles and other tissues, organs. So since all of these things can vary, and we know that all of the necessary genetic differences are also observed to happen, all of this observed evidence accounts for each difference in the fossil record. So not only does this theory predict the differences in the fossil record, fills them in, and also explains them with known phenomena. So that is, in fact, evidence against any other theory and evidence for common ancestry with all of the best possible techniques known to science.
Okay, thank you there for your concluding statement. Snake, we're going to hand it over to Kent. Actually, before we do hand it over to Kent, Emo, let's just just in time for the audience Q&A, let's see if your mic or your let's see if your mic has been fixed. If you want to give it a shot, Emo.
All right. Is this any better?
Yes, looks like it's been solved. So there's some evolution right there. Okay, appreciate it. Just in time for some audience questions as well. Okay, Kent, we're going to hand it over to you. Equal time, 5-minute concluding statement. Whenever you're ready, go ahead.
Well, I would conclude by saying that it's obvious what we've observed, all of humanity has observed in all of its history, is every plant or animal brings forth what anybody would consider the same kind. 500 varieties of watermelons. Still a watermelon. It's not growing feathers. It's not flying. It's a watermelon. Okay? They bring forth after their kind. There are over 1,000 varieties of mangoes. Wow. Might have had a common ancestor. They brought forth after their kind. Apples, 7,500 varieties of apples. Most would not survive in nature. They've been cultivated by man to select a certain part of the apple gene code to give more, more juice or more flavor or more something, more sugar, sweeter, sour, tart, whatever they want. Okay? All the apples might have had a common ancestor. 17,000 species of wasps might have had a common ancestor. That doesn't prove wasps are related to tomatoes. 3,000 varieties of tomatoes. Again, most cultivated by man to select a slice of the gene code. We could select a slice of the gene code from dogs and get one smaller or bigger and end up with one 4 inches tall or one 44 inches tall. But you're not going to get one as big as Texas. There's nothing in the gene code to do that. Evolution doesn't work. Variations within the kind works. God said they bring forth after their kind. That's all we've ever seen. That's science. What do we see, observe, study, test? Bananas produce bananas. 1,000 kinds of bananas, but they're still bananas. They brought forth after their kind. But you guys make these evolutionary trees, which is pure propaganda, showing the bananas and the coyotes are related. There they got animals, plants, and fungi all related, going to a common ancestor. See, that's religion inside that circle. Outside is science. There are 1,100 species of bats, down to real tiny to really big. Might have had a common ancestor. They brought forth after their kind. The cats have always brought forth after their kind. I suspect the leopard and the lion are the same kind. They can be crossbred, many of them. Hybrid cats. They get a lion and a tiger can cross and get a liger, a tigon, liger, jag lion. I don't know where it stops, but you're not going to cross it with a pine tree or a potato. You guys don't get it. Yes, it's a cat kind. How many were there? I don't know. I'm not asking my religion to be taught. You're demanding your religion to be taught, which says all the cats are related to a strawberry. That's what your religion teaches. And because somebody can't draw clear lines where all the cat kinds are, I don't know. Doesn't matter. Burden of proof's not on me. But your books teach the cats are related to a strawberry and a ladybug. That's not science. What do we got? How many kinds of oak trees? Dozens of varieties of oak trees. Might have had a common ancestor. 195 varieties of chickens, bears, watermelon. Yes, they bring forth after their kind. 45 different varieties of pumpkins have now been identified. 111 species of pine trees. 12,000 species of grass. 650 species of roses. 60 species of rats. 1,000 species of sharks. 60 kinds of eagles. See, there's a bunch of different trees. They bring forth after their kind. Inside that circle is pure religion. You guys believe that? It's not science. That's all. Science, what we can see, study, test, observe, demonstrate. Nobody's ever seen any animal produce anything other than its kind. Knowledge gained from using observations and experiments to describe and explain the world around us. Okay, make an observation. I believe cows produce cows. Test it all you want. That's all that's going to happen. That's science. So I think it stops there. Then you want to believe cows and bananas are related, and you do believe that. Well, that's not science. That's all. I'm saying you guys have a religion, and you're demanding everybody pay for the kids to learn that. I think that's not only dumb, I think it's criminal. It ought to be stopped. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Kent, for that 5-minute concluding statement. And gentlemen, that wraps up the debate. Of course, we got some audience questions. I will say that was a ton of fun. So I enjoyed this 2-on-1 debate. For the audience sake, we do want to start doing more of these debates, 2-on-1, 3-on-1, 4-on-1, whatever it is. So if you're interested, I got a lot of requests coming in through email. So if that's the kind of debate you are interested in, please do let me know and send me a request. So, okay, let's get into some of these. Oh, yeah.
I thought Emo's mic was working. Did I miss why he didn't get a closing statement?
Well, we had 5 minutes for each of you, so I guess yours would have had to been broken up. Did you have any time remaining in the? Did you want to give Emo a minute? I'm not sure how much time you had left in the 5 minutes. I thought you took it all.
I wasn't timing myself.
Okay. Let me see. Yeah, it looks like you took just about the full 5 minutes, maybe 30 seconds left. So it's up to Emo if he wanted to make a couple quick statements or save it for the audience Q&A.
Oh, my bad. I thought you would cut me off at my point.
No worries. I just left it up to you guys. Plus, Emo rejoined pretty well right when you were done. Right when you were done talking. So, but it does look like Emo's mic is working and good to go for the audience Q&A. So we'll give him Emo. We'll give you plenty of opportunity to chime in here on these questions. So, gentlemen, if it's cool with you, you want me to get to the first question or?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, here we go. 5-minute concluding statements. Now some audience questions. Okay, first question comes in from Creationist Crybaby. This one's for Kent. Questioner asks, don't you believe in a massive post-flood speciation event? If so, do you accept that macroevolution is a fact? Go ahead, Kent.
Well, they're confusing terms here pretty badly. I believe after the flood, let's just pick a number and say Noah had 8,000 kinds of animals on the ark. They have now diversified into what man has decided to put into more than that, a number of species. We've decided to call the Kaibab squirrel and the Abert squirrel a different species. The squirrel doesn't care. They can interbreed. They're still the same kind of animal as a squirrel. So no, I don't believe there was a great speciation event. I think there's a lot of varieties produced, a lot of them. As I mentioned, thousands of different kinds of bananas, 1,000 different kinds of bats, but they're still a bat. It's not a speciation event. That's certainly not macroevolution. That's a variation of the same kind. Some of the dogs that had thicker fur prefer the colder weather, so they stay happy up there in the cold in Alaska. Some are not happy up there, and they prefer the hotter weather. The dingoes, they have longer legs, thinner fur. They thinner body. They don't hold heat well, but they don't want to hold heat well because they live in a hot place. They didn't create that. That was already in the gene code. Natural selection works. It selects. That's all it does. No, I don't believe in a great speciation event after the flood.
Okay, thank you very much, Kent. Over to Team Evolution. Whoever wants to start. We could start with Emo in case he wanted to add a few points. But gentlemen, go ahead. Floor is yours for your response.
Let me see. Is this okay?
Yes. Oh, yeah. Sounds good.
Okay. Well, the amount or the degree of variation creationists accept happened post-flood would fit the definition of macroevolution. That would be evolutionary events. But again, they are saying that macroevolution would be a change in kind. But they don't say what that is. They don't explain what that is or what that would look like. What such a scenario would look like, where an organism, where a population changes to the point where it becomes a new kind or it gives rise to a new kind. What is that? So I don't know what that is. I try for creations to explain that to me so I can try to give that to them, but I never get that. So, that's the way it is.
Yeah, so they don't explain like what the limits of a kind are, like how much microevolution can happen. So Kent consistently brought up species that he's declaring are related to each other, and this is in fact required, or else the arc is overloaded. But when pressed on how he knows that this or that are related or more likely than others, he says he doesn't know because, again, this is the same method that scientists use to determine the relationship of all life. known variability that creationists do accept, this known variability within kinds exceeds the differences between different kinds. So it's all the same thing. It's all just a range of the same microevolution. It's just a question of how much is there, and no limit is given.
Okay, and question was for Kent. Kent, we'll give you the last word. Go ahead.
Well, science deals what we can observe. We do not observe any animal changing to a different kind of animal. Noah had birds on the ark. Noah probably also had cows on the ark. That does not prove they're related. I think the birds might have diversified. There are now 250 recognized breeds of cows. They're still cows. Any 4-year-old will tell you it's still a cow. But in your religion, cows and birds have a common ancestor. I think cows have a common ancestor getting off Noah's Ark, and it was a cow. I think the birds, maybe there's 500 kinds of birds. I don't know how many kinds of birds there are. I doubt the eagles and the canaries are related. Probably Noah had dozens, maybe hundreds of pairs of birds on the ark that have now diversified. And man has decided to call them a different species. As I said, I don't think the birds care what we call them at all. They know which ones to mate with. Got them all over.
Did you observe? Sorry, go ahead and finish.
Well, our ducks do not show any interest in mating with the hawks. They're scared to death of the hawks. The hawks don't show any interest in mating with the buzzards. They're a different kind. Where are those lines? That's a good question for science to work on. But because they don't have all those answers, doesn't prove the hawks are related to fish.
Did you observe God creating the first life, or did you observe God writing the Bible?
No. See, I take mine by faith, and I admit mine's a faith. You guys have a faith, and you don't admit it's a faith. You want to call it science.
Okay, gentlemen, let's move along. Great job so far. Praise. As co-mod, I got the next question up for you if you wanted to. It looks like it's for Snake. It's from Boomer21, $5 super chat. Thank you so much. Praise, go ahead. Oh, yeah.
I appreciate that, SFT. So he says, for Snake, if evolution is true, why can we not find the geological column other than on paper?
Because we can. Manitoba, Canada, and the Grand Canyon are the two ones that I know about, where they go down all the way to the Precambrian, which is basically where life started. Goes down all the way.
I appreciate that, and I guess Ken, if you want to respond to that, go ahead.
Well, yeah, there's no such thing as a geologic column. It's a bunch of layers of rock that all formed in 1 year. Nearly all of them are sedimentary rock, by the way. Occasionally igneous rock or metamorphic rock put in there. But I covered that last night on my YouTube channel, Kent Hovind Official. I've covered that many times in my video series. The geologic column only exists in the textbooks. It's not correct to say the layers are different ages. All over the world, petrified trees are found standing up, connecting all the layers. I'll show you pictures here in a minute. Grand Canyon, all the layers, horizontal layers, all formed by sideways movement of the water. And Grand Canyon probably formed not by millions of years, but by millions of gallons. Grand Canyon probably formed in less than a week. Billions of gallons of water roaring through there from Grand Lake draining and Hopi Lake, which are no longer there. Watch my video number 4 for more on that. But there's no such thing as a geologic column. Does not exist anywhere in the world. But that's the Bible to the atheist, and it's non-existent. All the layers are the same age.
Much appreciated there, Kent. And go ahead, sir. Go ahead, Taylor.
So it's not possible to have formed in 1 year because of the heat problem. The radiation alone would have melted the Earth, and that's doubled, if not more, by the amount of heat created by a catastrophic continental movement. We know the deposition rate of things such as limestone takes longer than a year to deposit the amount that's on the Grand Canyon. We know what it looks like when certain sediments happen in dry conditions versus wet conditions. Those are also found at the Grand Canyon. So the Grand Canyon is a convenient creationism destroyer all in one package.
Okay, here is we'll give you the last word since question was for you. Okay, question comes in from Logical, Plausible, Probable. He sent in numerous super chats. Thank you for the support. And he pointed out that he's got an after show right after this debate. So, but this super chat is a question. Looks like it's for you, Snake. You and LPP, John Maddox, debated this recently. So this might be something pertaining to your guys' debate. So he asks, what's your source for colony genome comparison? In our debate, you had none. And he's asking you to support that claim if you want to respond.
I put them up on the screen during our debate, John, actually. And there's several of them. Here's 3. Experimental evolution of alternating uni and multicellular life cycle in Cominomonas reinhardti, de novo origins of multicellularity in response to predation, and phagotrophy by flagellate selects for colonial prey, a possible origin of multicellularity. That'll get you started.
Okay, thank you. I guess it was more of a hyper-specific question for you, Snake. So I'm not sure, Ken, if there's anything you wanted to add, or we can move on to the next question.
Well, no, I agree with the questioner. I don't think he made a statement. He makes a claim. Where's the scientific evidence for this? I don't think there's been any presented. I'll review the video when I get time and see if I can find documentation for that. I don't think he gave any.
Taylor, you can have the quick final word.
Yeah, I'm seeing in the chat someone says fag trophy. Yeah, it's phagotrophy or phagotrophy because it's phagocytosis is the word. It's when basically a cell eats something.
Okay, thank you very much. Next question comes in from George Bond. Thank you so much for the super chat support. Question for both. Okay, so why is the protozoa at 670 billion base pair still a protozoa while humans are only 2 billion base pair? Evolution side, if you guys wanted to go first.
Yeah, I can take it. Yeah, the size of the size of organisms' genome has nothing to do with their complexity. You have like onions, for example, that has genome sizes that are like 6 to 8 times larger than other onions, and they look the same physically, but their genomes are like magnitudes larger than the other. So the size of the genome does not correlate with the complexity of the organism. That should answer the question.
Okay, thank you. Oh, sure, go ahead.
Yeah, just I'm not sure if I can answer why, but I can say that if creationism were true, I'm not sure why the protozoan has more genetic information than the human, being clearly less complex.
Okay, thank you. And Kent, over to you for your response.
Well, the questioner is correct. The amoeba has 670 trillion base pairs, whereas humans have 3.2 billion base pairs. I think the creator did that on purpose, just one of those millions of little things he hid in our gene code and in nature to make evolution look stupid. Go ahead.
All right,
I'm not
gentlemen.
sure how that makes evolution look stupid because it actually makes more sense under evolution than creationism.
Oh.
Okay, here we go. Next one comes in from IWKOI, $5 super chat for Snake. Real quick question. Are pyrosome multicellular?
I don't know.
Okay, let's move on right to the next one. Yeah, if there's anything else you wanted to add,
I can look it up and give my opinion. It looks like they have multi-cells in them, so multiple cells. So yeah.
Okay. All right, let's get to this one. In a nutshell, Cyberhex, $10 super chat, appreciate it. If I had to reword this question, Kent, looks like it's for you. I think he's disputing something you might have said. Do you believe science is a religion, or is it evolution you're referring to as a religion? But go ahead, Kent.
I defy you to ever find any place in the history where I have ever called science a religion. Evolution is a religion. Evolution is not part of science. That's my whole point. I love science. I taught science 15 years. We have science experiments here. We do all the time. I love science. Science is knowledge gained from using observations and experiments to describe the world around us. There's a scientific method. We went through all this. So I like science. I taught science. I believe in science. I like science very greatly. But evolution is not part of science. Science means knowledge. We know dogs produce dogs. We do not know dogs came from an amoeba. We do not know that dogs and strawberries are related. We don't know that. You can believe that if you'd like. It's evolution that's a religion. So Cyberhex, I am not lying. And you are lying if you're saying that I'm calling science a religion, because I never have. Evolution is the religion, and it's not part of science.
All right. Thank you, Kent, for your response. Anybody from the evolution side want to add anything?
Emo?
Or we could just move on to the next question. That's fine too.
Well, and I did have, we're not worshiping it. We're just following the data. And yeah, I didn't know what a pyrosome was, but I looked at it. They are colonies bound together, which is different from a multicellular body because you can actually cut them up and they will function the same, unlike what I brought up.
Okay, Kent, we'll give you the last word. Question was for you.
No, I stick by my guns. I've never called science a religion, and I would never call evolution a science. Evolution is a religion. You have to believe in it.
All right, guys, thank you so much. I think we got time for one more question. Again, time has flown by, and, we're already almost at the 2-hour mark, so I want to respect the debaters' time for tonight. So we'll do one last question. And always, thank you so much for our live chat tonight, being so engaged and sending in so many great questions. So Jeff Smith, question for the evolutionists. Did male and female species evolve exactly at the same time? It would seem so in order for reproduction to happen. What's the miraculous chance of that?
Well, while I'm reminded, I did want to address something Kent said earlier about how two of the same species need to have the same mutation at the same time. No, he knows that's not true. He admitted it last time. I don't know why he repeats it again every single time we talk. One parent with one mutation can hand it down to its children, even if the other parent does not. But for the evolution of sex, basically what is hypothesized to happen is sort of like the algae that I was talking about, where they shoot off one cell and that starts dividing. I believe kelps still reproduce this way. Kelps are also algae, and what they do is shoot out haploid cells that can combine with each other to produce a diploid cell. So it is sexual reproduction, but basically what would have happened is that, yes, they're evolving sexual organs concurrently, but this process of being able to combine a sexual cell happened before any sexual organs would have evolved, and sexual organs could have evolved asymmetrically, but they would only aid in an ability that is already there. And Emo, I'll just give a little bit of time for Emo and kind of fill the dead air. So just start talking whenever
Emo's delay decides. There we go.
To me, the question seems to be more on how species evolve as opposed to sexual reproduction. They seem to think that when a species evolves, you need to have the male and the female of that species for that population to be viable. Well, extinction mainly happens via a lineage splitting event. So you have a population that splits into two daughter populations, which would always have members. They would always have members to interbreed with, unless you're maybe talking about like probably association where it can happen in a single generation. But then usually there's like a lot of progeny where the offspring would just mate with themselves and then it would create a new population.
Emo, can you get a little closer just a little closer to the phone or the speaker?
Oh, sorry. What I was saying is that species usually evolve via population splitting into daughter populations, so there's always members to interbreed with. So there's no we don't have to like a male would not evolve. A male version of a species wouldn't evolve, and you have to wait for the female. It's usually like the populations would divide until they can no longer interchange genes successfully, and then that phenomenon we would call a speciation event. So that's how species usually evolve.
Okay, thank you for the answers from Team Evolution. We'll hand it over to Kent for your response. Kent, go ahead.
Well, if I understood the Taylor's response, it was the sex between cells happened first, and then sex between organisms, which of course is a story, a made-up story. We don't know that to happen. I'm doing a whole series on my YouTube channel, Ken Hovind Official, called Making Babies, about all the thousands of different ways creatures or plants have sex. How does the oak tree know to make pollen by the trillions to just fly out there loose, hoping they land on something? How did it do that? So I think the question is a very excellent question, and they're correct. They'd have to evolve at the same time and in the same place. What if you get a male and a female to evolve, but they're millions or thousands of miles apart? Wow, another problem. So it's not only at the same time, the differences between the male and female are enormous in most species. And the duck, for instance, there's no possible way the duck evolved, the ability to have sex. The male's penis is longer than his body, and at the end of mating season, it falls off, and he grows a new one next year. How did that evolve? I'm going to go through a whole series of the different types of creatures and ask the simple question, can you give a real scientific answer how this evolved? So far, nobody's been able to give one. Just check out our series, Making Babies, on Kent Hovind Official. So I think the question's legitimate. I don't think evolution has an answer for it other than a story, which is not science. Where can we observe this happening? Science is knowledge gained through study or practice, knowledge gained by observation, experimentation, and testing. There is no observation of sex evolving anywhere. I think it had to be designed. But I'm not asking for my religion to be taught at taxpayer expense. The burden of proof's on them to answer that one. They've got zero answer for that. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Kent.
Well,
and
so if
I final word, Taylor.
yeah, so it would be populations, not individuals evolving, whole populations evolving. So yeah, they're this phenomenon where they shoot off cells that can become new organisms. That's been observed, and cells can combine with each other. So populations, not individuals, populations would evolve, are capable, we know this today, are capable of evolving like a longer skin appendage or a pocket-shaped skin. So you'd have either this shape or this shape. This is possible to grow into an organism. We know this. And basically, what else is possible is that one of the sexes could develop to not release its egg and keep it in its pocket, while the other shoots out its egg or sperm, and they combine within the organism instead of in the floating free water. And the fact that each individual step along this process exists in some animal somewhere is great evidence that yes, this is possible to evolve, because each individual step is functional on its own and is possible to develop from a similar one.
Can I add a comment on that, Donnie?
Go ahead.
They can add one to one. They can add one to one of mine later if you'd like.
Sure.
I don't know if you guys understand it or not, but you can't get a population without sex. How do you get the population to begin with?
It's
get a
called
whole population of, this is how you get populations. Ask your mama, she'll explain it to you. The population of these things is not going to evolve. The idea that it gets a pocket this way or a pocket this way to be the testicles or the uterus, this is a story. This is insane. This isn't science. Watch it happen. Nobody sees this happen. You make up these stories, that's all. Evolution is a story. It's a religion, not science.
Yeah, so there are asexual organisms that reproduce asexually and produce populations asexually. And the way they do this is very similar to organisms that reproduce sexually. So the kelps, there are asexual algae and there are sexual algae like the kelp. And the only difference is that they're combining haploid cells versus diploid.
Okay, gentlemen, that's the 2-hour mark, and we got to end it somewhere. So this might be a good place to wrap it up. I do want to thank everybody involved in this 2 versus 1 debate. Tons of fun, very engaging. Praise I am. Thank you for being here, acting as co-mod and helping me organize and gather these, this great multitude of questions. So before we completely wrap it up, gentlemen, some quick final words, final thoughts. Let's start with Team Evolution. Thank you again for doing this. Much appreciated. Final words, final thoughts.
No, thanks for having us.
All right.
I guess
Yeah.
that'll do
Thanks
it.
for. I mean, it was kind of last minute, but
All right, Emo.
am I still lagging?
No. We can hear you. We can hear you. You're good. You're good. Go ahead if you want to finish your.
Okay. Nice. Yeah, I was saying like yeah, thanks for hosting the debate. I know it was last minute, but I tried my best. I guess next time I need to get a PC. The Android is not working for me, so next time I'll try to get a PC and we'll do a better something. I should I should be back on the channel at least before the year is up. So doing another debate, I would try to do that.
Absolutely. Would love to have you on. I believe, the first debate you did with Kent several months ago in the Evolution Debate Challenge series, you did have a PC and it went well. It went very smooth. So for anybody interested in seeing that debate, please check the description box where I have Kent's previous debates with both Snake and Emo listed there for people to enjoy. Okay, over to Kent. Thank you for doing this. Final words, final thoughts. Go ahead.
Sure. The topic of the debate, where's the evidence for evolution? I don't think they showed any. Evidence is the body of facts or information indicating whether a belief or proposition is true. They have a belief that they came from an amoeba and are related to a ladybug. Where's the evidence for that? Okay. Evidence, a sign that shows something exists or is true. What is the evidence? Which tends to prove or disprove something, a ground for belief. Why would you have a belief that you're related to a ladybug? Because of the ERVs? Is that a ground for belief in that? 4 types of evidence that can be proven or disproven at trial. Courts use this. Real evidence. We've never seen a cow produce a non-cow or an amoeba produce a non-amoeba. We're demonstrative. We can't demonstrate it in the laboratory. There's no documentary evidence. Nobody's ever seen it happen and written a paper said, I saw this animal change to a different kind. There's no testimonial evidence. It wouldn't hold up in a court of law at all. Okay. 3 primary standards for proof. Proof beyond a reasonable doubt, preponderance of evidence, and clear and convincing evidence. Evolution meets none of those standards, absolutely none. Levels of proof. Well, if there's no evidence, he's not guilty. If there's a scintilla of evidence, he's not guilty. There's reasonable suspicion, he's not guilty. Probable cause, still not guilty. Reasonable doubt, still not guilty. You have to go beyond all that to be guilty. To prove evolution, that have to go beyond all of this. Evolution, a process that different kinds of living organisms are thought to have developed and diversified from earlier forms. They have the charts showing the amoeba and the pine tree and the humans and the bacteria related. I don't think there's any evidence for that at all. I think evolution is a religion, and you're welcome to it. This is America, the land of the free and the home of the slave, and you can have any religion you want, but you don't have science. Quit calling evolution science. Quit pretending it is. Admit you believe in it. You might even want to believe in it because you like to get rid of God from your life. That's fine for now, till you die, but it's fine for now. Do whatever you want. Okay? Go ahead.
I didn't know the debate was still going, but yeah, let's do something a little more specific next time because these just tend to cover like way too many topics to get into any specifics.
Oh, you didn't know you're related to a strawberry? I asked if you're related to a ladybug. This chart shows humans and ladybugs related. Are you related to a ladybug?
We've covered this, yeah.
Okay.
All right, guys. Yeah, we'll do something specific for the next debate. Everybody loves a good debate between Kent and Snake. So I guess the next debate can be who's had more debates, Snake or Kent. So, all right, guys. Thanks again for being here. We'll see you same time tomorrow for Daria versus Kent. I'm going to let the debaters get out of here for the night. Enjoy their night. Kent, get some rest, get some sleep. And I am going to stick around for a few minutes going over some announcements and reminders. So, debaters, thank you so much for being here. We'll chat soon. All right, there we go. Another one in the books for both the Evolution Debate Challenge series and also for just debates hosted in general by Standing for Truth Ministries. Especially with the summer of all debates. That was our goal. Summer flew by. June, July, August. We had, 4 to 5 debates a week on all sorts of topics. Theology, soteriology, creation, evolution, of course. Some hyper-specific ones on endogenous retroviruses, ancestry, all types of topics. So we're close to, I think, now 220 to 230 debates. So if you're a debate addict, make sure to share around this content and also hit that subscribe button because you don't want to miss out on the debates that we have coming at you in the future as well. So Doki Doki Bible Club, thank you so much, brother. We've also got our Standing for Truth Ministries podcast up and running. My podcast guy, Sam Jenkins, brother Sam, has just notified me that he's added another 8 to 10 to the website. I think we're on a whole bunch of different podcasts, including Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple, all the fun stuff. So please do make sure to check that out and subscribe so you can listen to Standing for Truth on the go anytime. This was a ton of fun. This debate was awesome. Again, I want to thank Emo and Snake for being willing to engage in a 2-on-1. We want to spice things up and start doing some 2-on-1 debates, 3-on-1 debates, 4-on-1 debates. I think we could probably get up to 7 or 8-on-1, given the fact that the streamer holds 10 people. So any evolutionists, even those that have debated in the past, specifically Kent, shoot me an email. And it's not difficult to set up. I mean, me, Snake, Kent, and Emo set this up over the last 24 hours, literally. And we had a fantastic debate. It was a ton of fun. And I'd love to get some more 2-on-1, 3-on-1, 4-on-1. Us at Stand for Truth Ministries, we strongly believe in critical thinking. And one way we uphold critical thinking skills is by hosting so many debates. Okay. So, if you're also, a supporter of critical thinking and want to enter the debate octagon, please make sure to do so. So here's some reminders and announcements. So again, tomorrow the Evolution Debate Challenge series continues with the much anticipated round 2 between Daria Bloodworth and Ken Hovind. They debated a couple months ago, how are whales and pine trees related? That was a memorable one. I had a lot of fun with that. So now we're doing round 2. We'll probably do a trilogy. This one's going to be specifically, how are humans and chimpanzees related? And so definitely make sure you are here for that. Tonight, obviously, the epic 2 versus 1 debate between Kent, Snake was right, and Call Me Emo. Next month, I've scheduled Mike, who is supposed to be the one debating tonight. He'll be debating Kent on October 3rd. Okay, so we got a couple main events for everybody next month at the end of October. I am pumped. So main event number 1, everybody's been wanting to see round 3, chapter 3, endgame between Mark Reed and Dr. Dino. So we've made it happen. It's all confirmed for the end of October. Is there reasonable evidence for biological evolution? Chapter 3, endgame, round 3, call it whatever you'd like to. Clash of the Titans. So I'll make sure in the next couple nights to schedule this on the channel for people to see. And also at the end of October, huge event here. I am pumped for this. This is a debate I've wanted to see for a long time. And we've confirmed it. It's all set up. I'll get this up on the channel shortly too. Is the Trinity necessary to explain reality? Hosted by Standing for Truth Ministries. Jake, the Muslim metaphysician, who's seasoned, as well as Matt Slick, both seasoned debaters here. Jake, the Muslim metaphysician, has debated people like Dr. James White, Chris Date, and now he's debating Matt Slick. So this will be at the end of October. Two main events, Mark Reed and Kent, and then of course Matt Slick and Jake. Amen, Karen. Matt Slick's been a blessing. He's been here about 11 times, so this will be his 12th debate here with us. I'm pumped. Jeff Smith, thank you so much. Awesome debate tonight. Donnie, thanks for hosting. My pleasure. My pleasure. You know, it helps that I'm a debate addict. I love debates, interviews, lectures, conferences. I love them. So keeps me motivated. I love what I do. I love the supporters. You know, you guys are the life and blood of this channel. So also, good news: the special creation book is available. I've got a copy right here. So this is the black and white version. It's a big book. It's pretty thick, 300 pages, and it touches on all sorts of topics. This is probably one of the, if not the most comprehensive book that you'll find out there on the market, going over all the evidence in one place, all the evidence for you compiled into one place, one 300-page book on Adam and Eve, separate ancestry, and of course, you know, engaging the evidence for universal common ancestry and evolution. So please do pick this up. It's currently at cost. So, you know, it's cheaper than it's really ever going to be. This is a great deal. It's at printing cost. And a big reason for that too is I'm in Canada and I like to buy them in bulk in order that I can pass them around to friends, family, people at church. And so if I'm going to be buying them in bulk, you know, the best way to do so is to have it at printing cost. And so I wanted to give everybody interested in buying a copy of this book that opportunity as well. And I've just been updated tonight, and it looks like a ton have been sold already, and they should be getting shipped probably tonight. So anybody who placed that order, you should get them in the next couple days. Let me put the link in the chat, guys, because it's not something you're going to regret. That's for sure. We also got the green variant. That's a full color edition, and that one's available as well. So you'll see, it should be linked in the description box, but you'll see a full color edition, and then you'll also see a black and white edition. If anyone's in the chat that wants to post the full color edition for me, that would be awesome. So, okay, so we got some more debates coming up too for you at the beginning of October. The Marian Dogmas debate, Steve Christie versus Dr. Robertson Jennis. This is exciting. We got several Lordship Salvation versus Free Grace Theology debates, soteriology related debates coming at you. One with Charles Jennings and Richard Lee. We got this one, Eli Haytov and J.D. Martin. So many good debaters in the next couple months. I am really, really pumped. We've also got CJ Cox and Will Kinney. They are going to be debating. This is coming up soon as well. Mark Siegel, he's got two debates, both geology related. This one's the Evolution Debate Challenge, and Mark is going to be arguing for the geologic column and the fossil record as evidence for evolution. So that's coming up on the 20th, and then he's also debating on the 25th, I believe it is. Professor David McQueen. I've got a debate coming up on end times theology, the rapture, pre-tribulation rapture versus post-tribulation pre-wrath rapture. I'm also writing a book on this topic titled End Times Revealed. I've already got a huge chunk of it done. I'm now going to be in the stages of getting an awesome cover completed. And yeah, the book I'm working on is going to be very comprehensive, going over all the different eschatological positions, including amillennialism, post-millennialism, preterism, whether it be full or partial, and of course showing from the Bible that the pre-wrath position is biblical. So I'll be doing this debate. I believe this is on the 26th. And I just put out another episode, as a matter of fact, of my End Times Theology series here. Okay, so make sure to check that out. There's been about 9 episodes now in that series. And of course, the Endogenous Retrovirus Handbook, which I have right here. You can find this on the website as well. And also should be linked in every single video that we put out. So that's about it for reminders and announcements. Guys, I want to thank everybody for being here. This debate was a ton of fun. I was pumped for this. It did not disappoint. So LPP, it looks like he's got an after show that starts right after this debate. He says, come share your thoughts. Side chat will need to contain the dumpster fire. It's going to need an ambulance and a fire truck, apparently. So that should be fun. Just looking through the chat, and I think that's pretty much it, guys. I think that's pretty much it. So lots of debates to look forward to. We just hit 11,000 subscribers. So I want to thank all of our supporters. I want to thank just everybody who supports this channel, keeps us going full time. You guys are the life and blood of this ministry. So just looking at any final comments, and I think that's pretty much it. So guys, head on over to John's after show. And make sure to like and subscribe, share around this content. The truth is important, and critical thinking is so incredibly important as well. We're just getting started here at Standing for Truth Ministries. So God bless everybody. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for all the questions, the super chats, the super stickers. And we'll see you tomorrow night at 8 o'clock EST, 7 p.m. Central. Daria Bloodworth and Dr. Ken Hovind.